development in general. We gather once a month, usually on the second Wednesday of the month. In a minute, I will be joined by tonight's speaker. His name is Paul Buncombe, and he is a code mixologist. I really like this job title. A code mixologist at a company called Automatic, which is a major actor in the WordPress ecosystem. Tonight, Paul is going to take a look back at the history of WordPress. So this CMS that still powers almost 50% of the internet, and which has been around for 2 decades already. Before we do that though, so first a reminder that this event is being recorded, so if you do not want to be filmed or photographed, please do let us know. And now Grace is going to tell us a few words about Silicon Brighton and Runway East, who kindly support this meetup tonight. So yeah, over to you, Grace.
Hello, I will start with Runway East actually first, just so I absolutely don't forget to give them a plug. So they are our venue sponsor, and they actually sponsor quite a few of our events. They give us this space for free and also pay for the all-important pizza. But they're basically a co-working space. You can come and rent individual desks. You can rent smaller offices or bigger ones as well, on very sort of flexible and good price of leases and things. So a massive thank you to them for hosting us. And if you want to find out any more information about Runway East, you can come and speak to me or drop me a note after, or speak to the lovely Viva on the desk. So that is Runway East. And then in terms of Silicon Brighton, that's also their logo. So we are hosts of the Brighton and Hove Tech Sector. So this is one of about 30 tech and digital meetup groups, all of which you can see here. They're all free to join, same as this one, very deliberately available to people at all levels to engage with the content and people in the room. And they're all hybrid as well. So as Yannick said, this is being recorded with the view of it being live streamed this evening, and then it will be promoted on YouTube afterwards. The idea of all of this is that we want to make these events as accessible as possible for people, but then also the industry as accessible as for people to get into. These are all our wonderful supporters. So we're funded by local businesses who pay us or contribute to us financially every month to allow these meetups and the support that we offer the meetup community to continue to be free. So a massive thank you to all of those businesses. But we need more supporters and sponsors and speakers and meetup organisers. So if you maybe fall into any of those categories, or you maybe know someone or your business or a business that you know of who might want to in some way contribute to the mission, that's speaking, organising, sponsoring, supporting, in some way just getting involved, again, come and speak to me or a member of the team, and we would love to elevate you or your business or a friend or a colleague or whoever it might be. These are our values. I won't read them out, but just to say that anyone that we do work with or partner with, we really do make sure that their values align with ours and our community values. If for whatever reason that you feel like someone isn't displaying those, again, quiet word with me and we'll absolutely make sure that we do something about that. Follow us on socials. Amazing to meet in person, but also lovely to chat to people online as well in between. We're on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all the usual stuff. And that is it. So I'm going to hand you back to Yannick, who will pass over to our keynote speaker this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. Paul. Is that on?
Hello.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Sounds good.
How you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, good. Yeah.
First of all, thank you for doing this. We really appreciate it.
No problem at all.
And then before we get started with your talk, there is something I need to know. What does a code mixologist do?
It's not quite as exciting as it sounds, unfortunately. When I got my job at Automatic, we don't really have job titles. It's quite a flat structure. So you get to make up your own job title.
Okay.
And because I was working on loads of different code bases, I thought that's a little bit like a cocktail of code. So I called myself a code mixologist. So yeah,
Right.
it's not as exciting as it sounds, unfortunately. We've got some other quite cool job titles though. A friend of mine is the Chief Emoji Officer. So he's also the CEO.
Okay.
So there was somebody that's a rabbit hole enthusiast or something like
Right.
that. Like, yeah, so yeah, there's quite a lot of good job titles around in the company.
I feel like my job title is very boring now, and I need to get more creative. There's something I did not mention during the introduction. It's that you are also the organizer of a Brighton-based meetup dedicated to WordPress. Would you like to tell us a few words about that?
Yeah, it's called Word Up Brighton. It's been running now for quite a while, like on and off, but it stopped running sort of just before COVID, I suppose, and we've been struggling to get it back off the ground, but we're getting there now. We've been having a few socials every so often, and we've just announced one for the 26th of March.
Nice.
Which actually clashes with another meetup, but I've noticed that the meetup finishes at 8 o'clock, so you can go to that one and then come and join us at the Caxton afterwards for a drink if you like. So
sounds good, yeah. Well, it's really good and great that the group is back up and running, and if you want to make sure to not miss the next meetups, you can join the group on Meetup. Just follow the QR code here, and yeah, you will know everything about the next events and stuff. Well, thank you for your answers. I'm just going to let you get on with your talk now. So yeah, okay, without any further ado, please welcome Paul for his talk, 2 Decades of WordPress.
2 decades of WordPress. Yeah, let's get going. So I've got a little agenda as well. So it's an agenda within an agenda. I'm gonna go through some of the history of WordPress, how it started. That could be of interest to some of you. I know some of you are WordPressers here, so you probably know all of that. It'll be interesting to see whether I tell you something you didn't know. Then I want to have a look at the editor, because that's one of the, it's the sort of main experience when you're administering your WordPress website, and there's lots of changes going on with that at the moment. So again, it's a bit to do with the history of it, but I'd just like to show you what's happening there. Then we're going to do some myth busting. Hopefully I can persuade some of you to try out WordPress or come back to WordPress if you've been put off it for any of these myths that we've got. We're going to have a look at the new and shiny, mainly developer focused stuff that's coming down the pipe. And then I've got a sort of a parting thought, really. It's a bit like a Jerry Springer final words thing. Another 20-year-old reference. But first of all, let's talk about me. I'm Paul Buncombe. These are the best emojis that I could see that represents the things I want to say. I live in Brighton with my family. I've got 2 daughters, and I've lived in Brighton for so long, I've been collecting sort of hipster hobbies, basically. So I'm quite into coffee. I'm still making sourdough bread, and I like to think I'm a DJ, but I'm not really. This is me graduating from the University of Sussex at peak geek. This is what my friends call my Baldric phase. And it's so old that is the West Pier in the background. So this is when I got into web dev, basically. And I went to university, and I got given an email address, and I could surf the web all day if I wanted to, talk to people online. And it was just such an enlightening thing for me. It was like when I first plugged in my Sinclair ZX Spectrum into my TV, and I could make the TV do things. It was just really exciting stuff. And at that time, that was about the time that the first versions of PHP were coming out. And I took a look at it and really didn't like it at all. I didn't want to use it. But I did do a lot of web dev work, and I mainly worked in Perl. And then I went into the corporate world and started doing quite a lot of stuff with Java and C++ and C# and all those horrible things. Did that for a number of years until I ended up joining this company. It wasn't called iCrossing at the time, it was called Spannerworks, and they got bought by a company called iCrossing. And we were starting up a web development team in the company, and we use Symfony quite a lot as a PHP framework. But that was when I first came across WordPress and started building WordPress websites for some of their clients. So this was in 2009, and I think it was like WordPress 2 point something, and it wasn't particularly nice to work with at that time. It was to sort of bend it into the designs that the designers wanted was quite hard work. But I carried on using it because I ended up going freelance after working there. Most clients were starting to ask for WordPress websites. So I carried on using WordPress. That was when we started the WordPress meetup, everything else. And that was sort of the beginning of my WordPress journey, I suppose. Until I ended up joining Automattic 6 years ago. Yesterday, 6 years ago yesterday, it was my Matic-versary, they call it. And actually, I should have had my after 5 years of working at Automattic, you get a 3-month paid sabbatical, which I should have taken by now, but I'm going to do it this summer instead. So yeah, get a job at Automattic. It's a great place to work. And what was I saying there? Got really confused. Yeah, I don't know. I joined them 6 years ago. The extra T in the name comes from the fact that it was founded by this guy, Matt Mullenweg, who is also the co-founder of, he's our Lord and Master. No, he's a great guy. He really is. He's on his sabbatical at the moment. Which is quite interesting, having your CEO taking 3 months off. So yeah, but Automattic do quite a lot of things. This isn't me shilling Automattic, but I work on in Jetpack. Jetpack's well, it was one big plugin, but it's now a suite of plugins for WordPress. I lead a team building the Jetpack social plugin, which is all about posting your content to social media from your website, promoting your website on social media. But we have all of these other brands as well. There's Pocket Cast, Day One. That's WordPress VIP, which is like sort of premium hosting, I suppose. P2, which is actually a tool we use internally quite a lot, which is like a WordPress-based sort of knowledge base and sort of communication tool, I suppose. Simple Note, Tumblr, you may have heard of. WooCommerce, and the big one is WordPress.com. So that is managed WordPress hosting that we run for people. But this is also where a lot of confusion comes. You'll hear people talking about .org and .com all of the time. They're both domains. You can go to WordPress.org and WordPress.com. If you were going to WordPress.org, you're looking at the open source WordPress project, and that's where you go to download the software, download plugins, themes that are freely available. You'd also go to make.wordpress.org if you wanted to contribute to the WordPress project, and all the documentation and stuff's there for that. If you went to WordPress.com, then you're on an Automattic site, and that is where you can start building a WordPress website that's hosted on Automattic infrastructure. The problem with that is that WordPress.com, WordPress.org, and Automattic just kind of get used interchangeably in the press. And so we'll do something like acquire a company or something like that, and somebody will say, "Oh, WordPress has acquired Day One" or something, and it's like, no, it's like, or prices will get raised on WordPress.com, and it'll be like, WordPress have started charging you more money, and it's like, no, it's free. Anyway, it is what it is now. I hate that phrase. Why did I say it? No, it's not. So let's talk about the history a little bit. There is a PDF from a book that you can download on WordPress.org. I can give you the link, which covers quite a lot of this stuff, or you can go looking for it if you Google history of WordPress. But so WordPress is actually a fork of a project called B2, which it's also called Cafe Log, I think. I can't really work out the history of that. But the project was dormant years ago. Matt was using it as his blogging tool, basically. But the code was GPL, so it was available and could be used. Like he wrote this blog post in January of 2003. And he was talking about the fact that the project was dormant, but it was looking for more advanced blogging software, wondering which system to move to, maybe movable type. I think text patterns, one of them. But then he was saying, well, B2's this GPL licensed open source project, so maybe we'll just fork it and start developing it. I'll start developing it myself. He put this post up, and then a guy called Mike Little, who is in the UK, I think he was living in Manchester, or he definitely lives in Manchester now, and he got in touch with Matt and said, if you're serious about forking this thing, I'd like to get involved and work on it with you. So that's what they did. But also, because the project had been dormant for so long, lots of other people had forked it as well. And there was two main ones, one called B2++ that was being developed by somebody in Ireland called Donica, and another one called B2 Evolution, which was being developed by somebody called Francois Planck over in France. And so it wasn't really sure, where it was going to go, which one of these projects was going to become most dominant. But actually, the developer of B2 kind of woke up, came back on the scene, and said that WordPress would be the official sort of branch of the project when they released the first version of it, which happened in May 27th, 2003. This is WordPress 0.7, the first version of it. This screenshot was made by Herb Miller, who runs the WordPress Pompey meetup in Portsmouth. And he got the software running on modern PHP, basically, which is quite neat. It's up on GitHub if you want to have a play with it. So then after that, Matt had a chat with Donica about his B2++ fork of B2, and he worked on merging that into WordPress. They also talked to Francois about B2 Evolution, seeing whether they want to merge that into WordPress as well, which at the time I think he said it was sort of too much effort. He wasn't really interested in doing it, but actually it's still going, so you can use B2 Evolution as well if you want to use a different B2 based blogging platform. Don't use WordPress. Come on, please use WordPress. Then there's the other big thing about sort of blogging software at that time was movable type. Movable type was definitely the most dominant blogging platform. It had 70% market share in 2004, but 6 Apart, the company that was behind it, decided to change their licensing model and start charging everybody per installation, and this just created a mass exodus, basically, and there was an importer for WordPress, and so that is what sent WordPress on its way to the dominance that it has now, basically. One of the things about this is the GPL, which sort of has its critics, I suppose. This stands for the GNU Public License. And because this was the reason that B2 could be forked like that, because the GNU Public License says that the software must be freely available. If you modify it and distribute it, then you've got to those modifications have got to be freely available as well. And so because WordPress was forked from B2, it inherited this license, basically, and it means that really, you can't go back on that. What happened to movable type kind of can't happen to WordPress, basically, because somebody can go off and fork it themselves or something. Cory Doctorow says something about this. Sorry, I'm getting on my soapbox a little bit about open source software, but it says that these free and open source software licenses, as well as Creative Commons licenses, are Ulysses packs, which is a bit like it's what he calls a commitment device. So these irrecoverable irrecoverable. They're licenses that you can't go back on, basically. Like so, and I like this. I think it's a good sort of safety net to like put this thing in place that means that if somebody comes along and offers you a load of money, you can't sort of muck your users about. And then in 2005, just to talk about Automatic slightly again, like Automatic was founded, and it was founded to create, tools based on WordPress, and off the back of that, I suppose, helped the WordPress project. Akismet was the first product that they launched back in October 2005, which is anti-spam for comments. And then WordPress.com, which is, this managed hosting, was launched in November 2005. If I talk to people about WordPress and what they like about WordPress and the ecosystem and everything else, it's always a community that people talk about. And I'd have to agree, to be honest. It's very welcoming. There's all sorts of different people that are using the software and come to events and speak at events and pitch in and contribute. There's WordPress meetups that go on all over the place, WordCamps, which are community run conferences, which are really great. There's just been WordCamp Asia, which is one of the bigger ones. A few thousand people went to it. It's kind of, it seems to be sort of more about the community and everything else than really just the sort of the technology, the software. One of the things that sort of backs that up is this is the current version of WordPress 6.4. They're all named after jazz musicians. So this one's called Shirley, after Shirley Horn, who I'm not particularly familiar with. I'm not particularly up on my jazz, unfortunately. But there is 600 contributors to this release, and the release was done by the underrepresented gender release squad. So it just meant that everybody that was sort of a key role in the release wasn't a beardy middle-aged bloke like me, which is very good, I think. Right, let's talk about the editor. This is the logo for Gutenberg, which, if you're talking about the WordPress editor, that's what you're talking about these days. The Gutenberg project was started in 2014, and it's to modernize, I suppose, the editing experience in the WordPress admin. So the WordPress editor before Gutenberg looked like this, which doesn't look that much different from the WordPress 0.7 that we've just seen. And you can still get this experience by installing the classic editor. So you now have the classic editor and the block editor inside WordPress. This is tiny MCE based as well. The problem with this is that it had this sort of fairly WYSIWYG editing area, but the people wanted to produce all these incredibly complex, rich experiences inside WordPress, and it was pretty impossible to do. So that's what the Gutenberg project set out to resolve. This is what the editor looks like these days. So Gutenberg, the concept inside the Gutenberg editor is that it's all based around blocks. And so you build up your page or the section of your site out of different blocks. You can have a paragraph block, a list block, an image block, that kind of thing. But then you can also have container blocks like column blocks and stuff like that. So, it's a much more rich experience. And then developers can create custom blocks for their clients and things as well. It's much better. 2016, Matt said, learn JavaScript deeply. And it's because the way this shift was happening was that we were moving away from it being primarily a PHP application to the PHP side of things being more of an API, and then having a JavaScript-based sort of rich front end to it, which was quite a major shift, really. And there was sort of, I don't know, a slight amount of backlash in the community about that. Like, but I think overall it's been a good move. Like, he's now said learn AI deeply, so take from that what you will. Like, so there's 4 phases of the Gutenberg project. The first one is easier editing, which is creating the initial version of the block editor. Customization after that, which is extending the block editor sort of paradigm to editing the whole of your website. Like collaboration, which is as it sounds, being able to collaborate with other people to edit parts of your website, and also maybe having like editorial flows and things like that. And then multilingual, which is about having sort of multilingual front ends to the site. We've just come out of kind of phase 2, I suppose, of the Gutenberg project. And that means that we've now got this quite rich editing experience for the whole of your website. Like, WordPress ships with default themes, like, and the current one is 2024. And this is some examples of some things that you can do, you know, without touching any code, just changing all of the settings inside the themes to create some quite varied layouts with it. There's a site editor like this. So this is how you kind of can select different block patterns, which are like sort of theme templates for your site. Yeah, you can create like sort of gallery views and stuff like that and select from libraries of templates. It's also got this concept of global styles, so you can change like fonts across your whole website, colors across your whole website, that kind of thing. And again, from a developer point of view, you can do things like lock down brand colors and things in a palette for people, like, yeah, which is a pretty good experience, really. Nice. Collaborative editing is ongoing at the moment. You know, there's still work going on the site editing stuff, but this is a bit of a grainy old animated GIF of a demo of it. But it's this kind of Google Docs style collaboration on a page here, where you can edit a paragraph in one browser and the changes can be seen by somebody else, or you can add comments and things to the content as well. Yeah, which is quite nice. It'll be good when that comes out. Last thing to say about Gutenberg is that it's really kind of turned into a bit of a framework for creating editors, like, and there's an awful lot of JavaScript packages. Basically, you can roll your own web editing experience out of it, like, and that's exactly what a team of people did for Drupal. So they've used Gutenberg inside Drupal, and so they're bringing the same block editing experience to Drupal, which again is pretty cool. Right, myth busting. Yeah, when I talk to people about WordPress, the sort of pushback that I sometimes get often are kind of quite sweeping generalizations, like, and that often people have used it for a little while or something like that, and then said, oh, you know, I don't use it anymore because of X. So I thought I'd take some of the common ones that I've heard over the years and see whether I can sort of bust those myths, basically. Like, so myth 1 is that WordPress is only for blogs, like, which it most definitely isn't. Like, you can build any website that you like, pretty much, like, in WordPress. Like, obviously, it's come from, you know, it was blogging software when it first started, but it's a lot more than that these days. Like, you do get sites, obviously, that a lot of sites that are kind of quite blog-like. You know, this is Meta's newsroom site. And so, yeah, this is a bit like a corporate blog, like, but it's a bit richer than your sort of average blog from 2003. Like, so it's used a lot on kind of large informational sites like these. So NASA's just launched their new site. Like, it's all WordPress based with loads of custom blocks. I think they've got custom fonts that they've had made for it and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a pretty good site. They did a talk at WordCamp US, I think, last year. So, you know, if you're interested in that, about how they transition to it, basically. And the White House as well, it's a similar sort of thing, large informational kind of website, but these are all a bit blog-like, squint and they look like a blog. Like the Metro runs on WordPress as well. Like, so not my favorite site, but you know, it gets loads and loads of traffic, like, and you know, it's sort of, it holds up quite well. But then, you know, it also, there's sites like this that are built on WordPress. This is me scrolling through it, by the way. So this is a bakery site in Toronto, like, that's done an awful lot of scroll jacking, like, so but that's probably about as far away that you could get from an old WordPress blog as you can get. There's this one, a similar sort of scroll jacking website, which is a couple of street artists. There's a super nice page transition in a minute. That's it. Come on, wait for it. Isn't that lovely? So yeah, you know, really, it's the limits your imagination, as they say. Like, so, if you want to have a look and get inspired, WordPress.org/showcase. There's a lot of different websites, basically, and a lot of different types. So let you grab your photo. So yeah, WordPress is more of a framework these days. It's like a CMS publishing platform, like, you know, so you can build whatever websites you like, hopefully. Myth busted. That's myth 2. WordPress is insecure. Yeah, it's had its problems in its time, definitely. Like, but it's really not the case anymore. Like, there is a WordPress security team. It's about 50 people strong. They're sponsored to work on it by Automatic and a lot of other WordPress companies. I should be able to mention some of those. I imagine Yoast's in there and stuff like that. Great people donating basically people to the project to work on things like this full time. This is the HackerOne bug bounty page. So, you know, things are getting reported, like vulnerabilities will get fixed extremely quickly. There's an awful lot of processes around code review now and stuff. So vulnerabilities aren't getting into WordPress in the first place. Basically, core WordPress is extremely secure by now. Like, and, you know, it's yeah. You could run it like with peace of mind, I think. Like, so, a lot of the time you do get poorly written plugins and themes that do open your site up to problems. So, you know, just be careful about what you're installing and where you're installing it from. Like, if you're installing stuff from the official repositories on WordPress.org, then it's a lot safer than if you've just downloaded it from some news group somewhere or something like that. There's a lot of chat recently about the major vulnerability on WordPress websites being session jacking, basically. So taking people's session cookies and authenticating as them. Like, I'm not sure that it's true. There's a lot of discussion about it going on, like, in the community. And one person did actually point out that if this was the case, then you've probably installed some pretty horrible malware in your browser, and, you know, it's the least of your troubles. I kind of agree with that, although if you're running a big WooCommerce, you know, e-commerce store or something like that, and it gets hacked, it's bad news. Like, but I don't think it is too much of a problem. Like, just watch what links you're clicking on, and maybe make sure that you log out of your WordPress website, like, when you've finished doing things in it. Like, but the main thing is keeping things up to date. Like, until this big discussion about session jacking, everybody would agree that the main vulnerability that happens on WordPress websites is people that don't update their plugins and don't update WordPress. Like, there's a new feature, fairly new feature, for automatic updates of WordPress core. So make sure you've got that turned on. Like, you can turn on automatic updates on all of your plugins as well. Like, but yeah, what happens is a vulnerability gets found in an old version of WordPress, and somebody just writes a script to scan around for websites that are running that version of WordPress, and then they exploit it. So, don't be one of those people. And if you don't want to do it, then pay somebody to do it for you. Get some managed hosting or something like that. Because it's worth paying for it to sort of protect your space online, basically. I just thought I'd mention this because it's quite interesting. There was a big vulnerability in WordPress quite a few years ago, around WordPress 4. And it exploited something in MySQL where basically it would truncate the data that's being put in the database, and it would split characters in half. And there was some crazy thing that you could do there to then create an exploit that would get written out to the front end of your website. It got discovered and then got sort of worked in secret, sort of how to fix it. And in WordPress 4.2, they released 1,000 lines of code in the main WordPress database class, saying that they were giving emoji support to it. And actually it was to fix this bug. I mean, it also gave emoji support, but that's why it was the Trojan emoji, because it was, sort of, under the guise of emoji support, it was fixing this major vulnerability. There's a YouTube video, at LoopConf, all about it. So just Google Trojan emoji. That's right. Myth 3: WordPress doesn't scale or has poor performance. I think one of the counters to this is WordPress.com. WordPress.com is one great big WordPress multi-site installation. WordPress can be configured in a way where you can run more than one site on a single installation of it. It's running millions of websites, tens of millions of websites. And obviously it's using caching, and there's a CDN and all those kind of nice things. But it runs all right, thanks. Quite a few websites. And also recently, Time magazine announced Taylor Swift as their person of the year. And they were a little bit worried about whether the site was going to hold up, which is WordPress based. And this quote on this LinkedIn post is, peak Swift, we were serving over 100,000 requests per second effortlessly, which is pretty good. I don't know many other websites that would ever get that. Yeah, of course. Yeah. But still, but there was things like it was updating stuff because of course you've got commenting and likes and things like that coming in. It wasn't just a static HTML page. So myth 4: WordPress has bad DevX. The developer experience has been bad. But I feel especially with the Gutenberg project stuff, it's modernizing a lot. And I suppose if you were to compare it to a framework like Laravel or something like that, it's got a lot more legacy stuff in there. You can just sort of decide not to use that and use the new stuff. So there's a lot of legacy code. Some of the code organization wasn't great. Some of the naming of things wasn't great, but it's slowly but surely modernizing and growing up a little bit. One of the problems that I think comes, one of the reasons that people have a bad experience as a developer in WordPress is this hooks and filters system. It's a massive pro to WordPress, but also a massive con. So if you're not aware of it, it's effectively like an event system in the request. So in WordPress, in the core WordPress or in the plugins, these calls will be being made do action or apply filters. And then what happens is that elsewhere in your code, you can hook in to these events happening and do something. Or in the case of a filter, you can manipulate the thing that's been passed into it. The problem with this is that there can be any number of these handlers for hooks and filters, and they can be anywhere in your code. Like, so people end up going, you know, finding a bug or something's changing something somewhere, and they're like, where is this? And like actually tracing that through the code is quite a major headache. There's tools to help with it, but it's made even worse by people writing code like this, which is making it up like a dynamic filter name or hook name, and so that means that it's like completely ungrokkable. Like, and so you're searching around for like article underscore heading, and it's like it's nowhere in my code. Like, what is going on? Like, it's like, so a good way around that, good thing to do is in your dot comment for the filter, make sure that you put some of the possible filter names in there, like, so that can help people out. Or better still, always make sure that you've got like static filter names, like, and then you can like pass in the other things as arguments to it instead. Like, but one of the things that I think should give you a really good development experience with WordPress is that it's been going for 2 decades, like, and there's these real battle-tested features. You know, you've got a user management system, content management system, theming system. There's like a REST API. There's a great GraphQL API if you want to use that via a plugin. Like, and all of this stuff is just kind of sort of out of the box. So in a sense, if you've got the right sort of project, like that's around content management and stuff, then you've got kind of a pretty good sort of rapid application framework for you. Another kind of pro and con is the backwards compatibility of WordPress. It's like very much committed to backwards compatibility, and it's still until very recently, the minimum PHP requirement for WordPress was still 5.6, like, and that gave it a really bad name, I think, because I think everybody thought, well, it's just really old, you've got to use this old stuff. But that doesn't mean that in your code and in your themes and everything, you've got to use 5.6 compatible PHP code. You can use whatever you like. Like, so, and yeah, actually in the requirements page, it does suggest, you know, you should be using 7.4 or greater. Like, yeah, so yeah, it's getting there. It's been quite a journey with that, because, you know, we like WordPress obviously doesn't want to break everybody's website, and there was still a lot of hosts and a lot of websites out there running these old versions of PHP, right? So yeah, it's like moving a big juggernaut, like trying to get everybody to upgrade. But the good thing about backwards compatibility is that themes and plugins and things that you write that were written many years ago, you know, you can install on the latest version of WordPress and they work fine. Dev tooling. We've got some new dev tooling, which is quite good. I call this a dev tool, but it's actually like more of an administration tool, I suppose. There's the WordPress CLI, which is as it sounds. Like, you can administer and query WordPress from the command line. It's extremely powerful. I use this kind of thing all of the time for debugging stuff. So you might have loads of plugins installed on your website, and you can just deactivate them all in one go without having to go into the admin. You can configure it, you can search across your posts, pull it out in JSON format. And the cool thing about that is it allows for scripting. So, you know, then you can run it on the command line, push it through JQ or something like that to query the JSON that you've got coming out of your WordPress website. It's really neat. And then the other one that I really like is WP Shell. So this is like an interactive shell, but with a bootstrapped WordPress environment. So you can be calling functions and getting responses and stuff like on the command line, which is quite a nice way of sort of doing like REPL development, like on the command line. WPM is the other tool that I really like that's come out recently. This, yeah, I think it might have been a package that got created as part of the Gutenberg project. So this is Docker-based development environments on your machine. WPM start, you know, starts up the Docker environment. You've got, you know, stop, restart, all those kind of things. You just create a .wpm JSON file in your directory where you're developing your plugin or theme or whatever, and you can specify in there what versions of WordPress you want to use, you know, what plugins and themes that you want to bootstrap it with, like, and then when you do start, it will build your development environment for you and bring it up on localhost. Then you can do really convoluted things like this because it runs WP CLI within it. And so you can install a WordPress plugin in your Docker environment in WPM, sort of, yeah, don't do that really, but it just sort of shows the power of it. It's also got Xdebug and a test runner. It will open up another website so that you can run end-to-end tests and things in your WPM environment. Right, they're my myths. The new and shiny stuff. That's not, well, kind of new and shiny anyway. WordPress Playground. This is really cool. So you can run WordPress now in your browser, without using a server. So it looks like this. This is me leaving a comment. I'll make a typo. But this is all running embedded in a web page in your browser, basically, which is super cool. No server. How does that work? Well, PHP is running as a WebAssembly binary. MySQL is replaced by SQLite, and then there's a plugin installed in WordPress to translate that. And then the web server is a server worker, so it's intercepting when you're clicking on links to go to pages and posts, and makes the WebAssembly binary serve up the HTML for it. Super cool. But why would you want to do that? It means that you can embed WordPress in your plugin and theme page and allow people to use it as a demo, to showcase things. You can set up these super quick development environments. So maybe you've got a tutorial site for WordPress and you can have interactive tutorials on site, embedded in the web page where you're teaching people. And actually there's a little tool called WP Now, which spins this up under Node so that you can run these WordPress playgrounds locally. You might think, why would I use WPM then? I'll just use WP Now. And you kind of could, but it's not as full featured as the Docker environment because, of course, you're not using MySQL and Xdebug and all those kind of things. But there's also a VS Code plugin if you use VS Code to spin up these WP Now instances inside your development directory. So yeah, basically you can run WordPress anywhere. So you could be running it on quite low-powered single-board computers and things like that. The HTML API. This is a bit of a strange one. So it's one of those things that you don't know that you need until you need it, basically. It actually came out in WordPress 6.2. It's being updated in 6.4, and it's getting some more updates in 6.5, which is going to be released soon. In WordPress development, you end up manipulating an awful lot of HTML, and that's happening a lot more, because of server-side rendering of the blocks, which are React blocks, basically. And so there's always these problems where you want to do things like add an attribute into your HTML tag or something like that. And what often happens is people end up reaching for regex, which is an absolutely terrible idea. We all know that you shouldn't use regex to manipulate HTML. But to give an example of it, this is the kind of thing that ends up happening. Somebody wants to put loading lazy onto their image tag. So they have this regex like this, which is capturing everything inside the angle brackets. But then you've got some HTML that looks like this. So that doesn't work. So then you end up saying, okay, well, I'll make it not greedy so that it only selects a minimal amount of text in between the angle brackets. But then you get something like this. So that gets broken. Right? So then you go, okay, all right. Like you Google it on Stack Overflow, and you end up getting something like this as your image thing. Like it's got attributes have got to be in double quotes, and we've got to have spaces in between them and stuff like that. And then you think, oh no, actually, it's single quotes or double quotes, isn't it? So you do another Google, and you end up with a regex that looks like this, and it's like this is horrible. Like so the HTML API is designed to sort of solve this problem. Basically, the main class is the tag processor, and it's a kind of a very lightweight processor rather than parser, and it will go through and sort of visit like each of the tags in your document and allow you to query for them, and also manipulate them, like add attributes, see whether they've got a particular attribute on them, things like that. So that is how you would do it, basically. And you could change this to while instead of if, and so it would do it for all images in your HTML document. And then I think this is lastly is the interactivity API, which is pretty cool. Until now, WordPress hasn't been opinionated at all about how you do interactivity on the front end of your website. But because a lot of stuff's moved to React because of the block editor is all written in React, like people have started doing things like using React on the front end. They need to do like server-side rendering of their React components, and so this is here to solve that and basically give people a library that they can use to create interactivity on the front end. It's kind of PHP first, so the idea being that it's concentrating on allowing people to be able to create sort of server-side rendered stuff and add things into their HTML via PHP, which will sprinkle in interactivity on the front end. Like I can see it going, it's not at the moment, but I can see it going the sort of same sort of way as like HTMX or sort of Livewire or something like that, having that kind of sort of capability to it. Like but you add all of these different attributes. I won't go through it all, but the idea is that there's a store with callbacks and actions for changing state. Callbacks are for side effects, and there is the JavaScript for the store for it. And then this is basically the core of it, which is a bit like setting up the initial state for your page, and then you process your HTML document with the state, and it sort of basically does the server-side rendering of your HTML. The cool thing about this is that means that as you visit a front page, what happens at the moment a lot of the time is people visit a page, JavaScript loads, and the JavaScript's got to go to the API to get some data. Everybody's hanging around for a while. Whereas this ends up being all kind of server-side rendered, so that the state comes up, sort of the with the rest of the code. So this is that going to play? Are you going to play? Oh no, it is playing. Okay, so this is a demo website. It's the wpmovies.dev site, which is to demo the interactivity API. It's a movies website. So as you can see, it's like more like an application. You can sort of move around it and you get kind of like instant reload. These are like buttons and they're connected to a sort of a like counter in the top right. So it's as it's changing state, that global state is updating. So going to a movie page. When you play the trailer, it sits over the top of the page, and that stays there while you move around the site, which is pretty cool. It's got a search. As you can see, it's all quite fast, quite sort of application experience without. Yes, yep. So this is all integrated into the editor, into the site editor. So because interactivity is sprinkled into the blocks, you can then put in other instances of these interactive blocks around your page. So this is the search template for the website. Added a row into the search results. And then going to add another like block in there, which you can format in the usual ways, use alignment and stuff. Have to refresh the page there for that one. But then when you search again, you get these new like buttons underneath the search results, which are already got the same functionality as the other like buttons and link up to the global state, which is pretty cool. So you can kind of give these experiences to clients, and with a kind of a no code kind of way of administering their website, they can add in other interactive elements if they want to. Pretty cool. Right, this is my closing thought. I know I've run over. So open source and open web. Like I'm really quite passionate about the open web, basically. And I think everybody should be running their own websites online. We have a creed at Automatic called, and it's got a statement in it here that says, I know that open source is one of the most powerful ideas of our generation, and I like to think of that as interchangeable with open web. This isn't WordPress specific, but as WordPress runs like 40% of the web, I think it's kind of pretty relevant, really. Like, so there's this guy, Derek Sivers, who's got this idea of tech independence, and he thinks that everybody should basically, if they've got the ability to, they should be, running their own websites, running their own stuff, and being, the masters of their own destiny, basically, with open source software. And I totally agree. And I think this kind of audience, being developers and stuff like that, I kind of want to preach to you and say that you should do the same things, basically. If you want to do some of this stuff with WordPress, there's obviously indie web, which isn't really WordPress specific, although there's a lot of WordPress related information there about how you can format stuff on your website and things, and use like web mentions and stuff like that to keep discussing things with different people. And also there's the Activity Pub plugin, which was also like an acqui-hire from Automatic. And so Matthias, who writes that plugin, is now sort of full-time employed to write it by Automatic, which is great. But that means that you can turn your WordPress website into a node on the Fediverse. People can follow your website and everything else. And if people leave a comment on one of your posts in Mastodon, then it appears as a comment on your WordPress website. It's pretty neat. There's no excuse, basically. So go forth and build more WordPresses, right? Thanks.
Thanks, Paul. Super interesting stuff. I really want to watch Shark Side of the Moon now. It was one of the movies on your demo.
Yeah.
So, like you said, WordPress is not just used for blogging anymore, and you can do a lot with it. So, how do you decide whether WordPress is the right tool for a specific web project?
I'm a bit biased. It's a hammer for me, and everything's a nail. So yeah, but I would say it's dependent on how much content I think is going into the website, would be one of the things, but also the person that's going to have to administer it at the end of the day. If it is me as a developer or something like that, I'd probably still be just as happy using some static site generator like Hugo or something. But if the end user of this is going to be a web agency, a marketing agency or something like that, and they're also administering another 20 WordPress websites, then I think it's probably a good idea to be using WordPress too. And with some of these tools now, I think whereas previously I have uttered the words to people that they should maybe just go and build their thing in Squarespace, or one of these other, sort of SaaS tools. And I feel like WordPress has got to a point now where I don't have to say that anymore. Because you've got this, nice, rich editing experience, which is definitely on a par with it. And as I say, own your content. so that
makes sense. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, it's more about the end user than about the developer, then, which is interesting.
I'd say so. Yeah. Well, yeah. Also, I mean, yeah, if you've never done anything in WordPress before, maybe, do something small first.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So,
Cool. Are there any questions? Wait.
Oh, hang on. Sorry. You mentioned Matt mentioning AI early on in the talk. Everybody's throwing AI at everything. Like Wix has got AI in now. Do you know anything about WordPress going to throw AI at anything?
I don't, I'm afraid. No. I wonder, and this is me just purely speculating, well, the plugin repository and the theme repository both have teams of people that vet the themes and plugins before they go up there to make sure that there's not security vulnerabilities or accessibility issues and stuff like that. There's a massive backlog still, I think, in the plugin repository, and I think that kind of thing, would be a good use case for it. Maybe that sort of 80-20 thing, where maybe an AI could be trained to sort of go, yeah, that seems good, and automate that stuff. So
seems like an AI is doing that at the moment, anyway.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so I host a lot of websites and work with developers and freelancers and site owners. So that whole talk was great, and I like the block editor. I'm a developer. You didn't mention Elementor once, and all the freelancers I work with, they can't stand the block editor because it's too complicated for them, oddly. But Elementor, they love it. So when the customer comes to the developer, the designer, and says, I need a website, they don't care what CMS it's on. The freelancer says, well, we'll use WordPress and Elementor because that's what they like and it works well for them. So how are you getting on with page builders now that they're all having to respond to Gutenberg getting better, even though the developers, the freelancers don't seem to be seeing it?
I'm not sure that's too much of a problem. But WordPress, it's all on WordPress, which is what I like personally. I like to hear that things are on WordPress. Elementor's great. It's massive as well. Lots of people use it. Divi as well is another massive one. Is that still going? I'm not such a fan of Divi. It uses a lot of shortcodes and things like that, which looks a bit messier. I don't know really. I think there's probably place for both of them, and I think Elementor could evolve somewhat and end up being compatible with the code that the block editor is putting out, and maybe vice versa. I don't know. There was a talk Matt spoke about in the last State of the Word about this sort of data liberation thing, and he's very keen that people could basically use whatever tools they want to use and can move freely between them, basically. So whatever environment you're in, whether you've picked to use the block editor or Elementor or something like that, that you're not stuck. Then if Elementor decide that they're going to charge twice the amount, then you can just move on somewhere else. So yeah, that's what I'd say about that. I don't know. Does it answer the question?
Just more of a point of curiosity.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
It was interesting to see to hear when you were suggesting to put automatic updates on. I'm always a bit scared about automatic updates, and especially nowadays in kind of a large website, I would have thought that you would update the Dockerized images rather than WordPress itself.
You could do it like that, yeah, if you want to. Yeah, I mean, certain sites you are going to want to do that. There's a feature for scheduled automatic updates coming out soon, which would be quite useful for some sites like that. So you could say, right, well, we'll do the updates at 1 a.m. or something, and we can make sure that our backups have run beforehand and that kind of stuff. I think, just for the standard website, just turn on automatic updates, basically. If you're running it on a Dockerized image, yeah, I think you probably want to create a new Dockerized image, wouldn't you? And swap it out. But you're basically handling your own updates there and and everything else really. Like, yeah, it's like, I just mean, you know, if you've downloaded and installed WordPress on your, you know, GoDaddy hosting or whatever, like, you know, then these are the sort of basic things that you should do to keep yourself safe. Like, but yeah, maybe you wouldn't need to do Dockerized stuff. I don't know. Like, yeah, it's like, yeah, and you can handle I would say also there used to be a thing called the white screen of death, which is when there's a PHP error happens in the background, you just don't get anything like on the front screen. And that's what people didn't like about updating, is that they'd update all their plugins and then suddenly it'd just be a white screen, they'd be locked out of their website. But there's loads of features now in WordPress to detect that, and at the point of plugin upgrade, like, and so if that happens, like an exception gets thrown or whatever, it just rolls back the update immediately. Like, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No, nothing online. All right. Right, I think we can end here then. Please, let's get another round of applause for Paul. I've got a few things to tell you before. Oh, that's perfect. Before we wrap up. Yeah, so upcoming events in the Silicon Brighton network. So you can scan the QR code over there to get more information. What is Green Software? Is that a new one? Right, okay. What is it about? Okay. Right, okay. So like sustainable tech and stuff like that. Okay, that sounds interesting. Yeah, Product Unleashed, always a really good meetup about, you know, with product people and by product people. Really good. Sussex as well, and Brighton Data Forum for sure. So yeah, scan the QR code there to get all of the information. Yeah, join the Slack, the Silicon Brighton Slack community. So we've got a channel on there as well. So you're welcome to join both, and you know, to keep the conversation going in between the events. And yeah, if you haven't joined the group yet, please do. There won't be a PHP Sussex next month because I'm away. There should be one in May. It's not been announced yet. I'm just waiting for the speaker to confirm. But yeah, make sure to join the group so you will be informed about all of that. And I think that's it. So yeah, thank you all for coming. Thanks again to Paul for his talk. Thanks to Silicon Brighton and to Runway East for the support. And yeah, hopefully see you next time. And till then, you know, take care. Cheers.